Hey everyone, welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a massive, frankly shocking, market shift that went down in June 2026. We're talking about the complete dethroning of a decades-long champion in the Indian two-wheeler industry. This is going to be an absolute masterclass in business strategy, shifting market dynamics, and what actually happens when an unstoppable force meets a highly adaptable competitor.
You know, there's a quote that perfectly sums up the mood right now. For as long as I have followed Indian roads, one truth felt permanent. And if you follow this space, you know exactly what that feels like. There are certain things in business that just feel like permanent fixtures, right? Like laws of gravity that simply do not change. But as we're about to see, in today's market, gravity can shift very, very quickly.
Section 1. A broken truth. Heroes fall.
Okay, so for literally decades, the undeniable reality was that Hero MotoCorp sold the most two-wheelers in India. End of story. But June 2026, it completely shattered that reality. TVS surged by a staggering 47% from a year ago, pushing out 565,000 units in a single month. Meanwhile, the incumbent, Hero, slipped by 2% down to 541,000. So for the first time in decades, Hero is not number one by monthly dispatches. TVS is holding the crown. And this isn't just some slight edge. This is a monumental changing of the guard.
Moving on to Section 2. TVS's winning strategy, diversification.
So how exactly did TVS pull off this massive upset? Well, they didn't just get lucky on a single bet. No, they were firing on all cylinders simultaneously. Across the board, we're seeing huge, double-digit growth. Motorcycles, up 42%. Scooters, up 53%. Actually, scratch that. It's more than just growth. They engineered a flawless scenario where every single vertical fired together, leaving absolutely no single point of failure in their lineup for the month.
And nowhere is this clearer than in their transition to the future. Their electric iQube model literally tripled its sales to nearly 49,000 units. By doing that, they snagged the absolute #1 spot in electric vehicles with a super commanding 24.5% market share. So they aren't just winning in legacy internal combustion engines, they are aggressively dominating the next generation of mobility.
But wait, it's not just a domestic victory. Their strategy holds up incredibly well globally too. TVS exported 1.54 lakh units. To put that massive number into perspective, that is nearly 2.9 times the combined exports of their major rivals, Hero and Honda. They've built this incredibly robust domestic foundation and then layered it with a rock-solid international buffer, proving they aren't just a local hero, pun absolutely intended.
Section 3. Cracks in the Fortress. Hero's single bet. All right, let's pivot and look at the incumbent, Hero, because it paints a totally different picture. Their entire empire was heavily concentrated on dominating a single, albeit massive segment, the entry-level rural commuter bike. They essentially built an impenetrable fortress at the very bottom of the consumer pyramid. And for years, let's be honest, this was an absolute cash cow for them.
But here's the thing about fortresses. They are only as solid as the ground underneath them. And that foundation? It's cracking. Their core entry-level model, the HF Deluxe, suffered a brutal 38% crash in May. When your core product takes a hit that massive, the entire structure shakes. This crash dragged their whole core motorcycle division down 6.62% year over year, and their exports, just a mere 38,000 units. So there was no real safety net to offset the domestic slide.
So why the sudden crack in the foundation? Well, it was a 1-2 punch from two major external forces hitting at the exact same time. First, widespread rural wage stagnation simply dried up the purchasing power of their core demographic. And second, fierce competition arrived in the form of Honda's new Shine 100, which directly challenged Hero on their own home turf.
Section 4. Honda closes the gap, creating a three-way battle.
And speaking of Honda, they are rapidly turning this into a highly pressurized three-way battle. Honda is breathing right down Hero's neck. They jumped 23% to over 528,000 units. They are aggressively closing a gap that honestly once looked utterly unbridgeable. Hero isn't just looking ahead at TVS taking the lead. They now have to constantly check their rearview mirror because Honda is rapidly accelerating right behind them.
When we step back and look at this objectively, we are watching two fundamentally opposed business philosophies colliding in real time. TVS took an all-bets approach, systematically spreading their exposure across different powertrains, various price points, and multiple geographies. Hero, on the other hand, leaned super heavily on a single one-bet pillar at the bottom of the pyramid.
Now, to be completely fair and impartially report the data, Hero is definitely not just sitting on their hands. Their EV brand, Vita,
actually jumped a super impressive 185% to over 20,000 units, and their scooter sales rose 51% in June. So this proves their newer hedges are actually working. The problem? That massive legacy core they rely on so heavily is quietly stalling out.
Section 5. The ultimate lesson in business strategy. So, what should you really take away from this explainer? Because it goes way beyond just selling vehicles. The overarching philosophy here is the delicate balance between concentration and fragility. You see, intense concentration looks like immense, unbeatable strength when you're winning, right? You own the market, your margins are clear, your brand is practically synonymous with the product. But this entire scenario brilliantly illustrates how that strength instantly becomes fragility the exact moment your single segment falters. June 2026 wasn't just a randomly bad month for an incumbent, it was simply the month the bill finally came due for an over-concentrated strategy in a rapidly changing world. TVS had been doing the really hard, expensive work of diversifying for years, and this was the month all those intersecting trend lines finally crossed. Which leaves us with a pretty provocative question for you to apply to your own work, your own investments, or your own ventures. As market dynamics inevitably change, because let's face it, they always do, are you building a resilient, diversified portfolio where multiple verticals can support you? Or are you resting comfortably inside a massive but ultimately fragile fortress, just waiting for the foundation to crack? Think about it. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I hope it gave you a powerful new lens through which to view market strategy.